next panel, Platforms and the Circular Economy. And this panel is going to be chaired by Elle. So Elle is a former newspaper and magazine features writer and advertising creative. She wrote for The Guardian and the BBC, commenting on health, society, sustainability, tech, and lifestyle. Elle is passionate about the potential of online platforms to help us live more sustainably. And so she now speaks, writes, and advises on gig and sharing economy models. And she recently published Thanks for Sharing, a practical, realistic, and funny guide to help us live through more affordable and sustainable lives. It's a really funny book, and I recommend it to anyone who hasn't read it yet. So Elle, over to you.
Oh, thank you, Laura. I didn't realize you were going to have my book handy, so that was lovely. Thank you. And thank you for the introduction. I am indeed passionate about this space. So I'm really delighted to be chairing this panel today because it is right up my street. How can platforms power the circular economy to build sustainable ecosystems? So I'm welcoming today Lucy Peacock. Welcome, Lucy. Here
Hello.
she is. Hi, Lucy. Lucy's head of pre-loved fashion at eBay. We're delighted to have you here on Platform Leaders today, Lucy. And I'm also joined by Tom Berry, who is Senior Director of Sustainable Business at FARFETCH. Hi, Tom. Thanks for joining. We did see you pop up earlier, but only briefly. No, only briefly. That was great. Great to have you both here. And I just thought we could kick off really by letting you both speak for a couple of minutes about your individual companies that you work for. Most people on today will obviously know the name eBay. FARFETCH also maybe, but perhaps not. So it'd be great to hear about you and your roles briefly. Lucy, can you kick off?
Yeah, no, sure. So yeah, I head up pre-loved fashion at eBay. My kind of background is kind of working in different fashion brands across the high street, mainly mainstream fashion. I came to eBay about 18 months ago, and we obviously we're a massive platform, global platform. Our biggest markets are the US, UK, and Germany. And we kind of work with over 250 brands to work with them to kind of embed circular business models and look at those economic benefits of business models so they can scale them for the future. We work with charities. We have over 1,400 charities on the platform, so really heavily in the charity sector. And do a lot of work of sharing information between business and charities, again, to really kind of increase money that goes into some of the projects, some of the good projects that our charities are working on. And finally, we have a lot of like consumer selling, and then also small businesses. So we call them our SMB businesses. Which could be like a bedroom, we call them our bedroom millionaires, to kind of real kind of focus circularity business that are really driving it from that space. So yes, I work across a really wide range from small business, big brands, and then kind of consumer selling. Our mission at eBay is to really kind of scale and accelerate the circular economy. We have a big role in our impact and our scale, and how do we use our expertise that we have that we've been doing this for about 10-15 years. How do we use that data to share with brands to work through business models that are effective, both from an economic point of view and environmental point of view, and kind of reduce waste. I think some of you might have known we're working a lot on things like some of all the barriers of shopping secondhand, things like some people might have seen our authentication guarantee, which we've been working on, where consumers can guarantee the items that they're buying in the secondhand market. And other barriers are things like whether an item should be hygienically cleaned. So we're working on a lot of that, of how a customer makes sure that they get good quality secondhand inventory so that they change those behaviours. So lots of work within that kind of space as well. But yeah, lots of work at the moment in that space.
And I know, Lucy, you've also been involved in eBay's quite high profile collaborations with some TV shows that anyone joining from the UK will have seen recently, which is brilliant and really bringing some of this into the mainstream. Is it Love Island? Am I right?
Yeah, we've partnered with Love Island. We're just going into our 3rd series. Actually, it started a couple of days ago, and this is all about change. It's like with changing customer behaviours on secondhand fashion. The particular TV program, Love Island, is very focused around Gen Z, and it was all about fast fashion. And we changed that narrative to so that all the contestants on the show wore secondhand. And just the narrative throughout their partnership of what does secondhand mean, and what kind of what quality and value you can get from shopping those items.
Great. We'll look forward to hearing more about that. Tom, let's hear from you. Let's hear a bit about FARFETCH and your role at that brand.
Yeah, hi, thanks for having me today. I've been at FARFETCH for about 5 years. I've worked in sustainability and business strategy roles for about 20 years now. And I joined FARFETCH to start and set up their sustainability program. FARFETCH, for those that don't know, are the global platform for the luxury industry. So we connect about 4 million active consumers globally with about 1,400 of the kind of world's best small shops, boutiques we call them, and brands directly in about 190 countries. And when I joined, we launched a mission which we call Positively FARFETCH, which was because the whole exec at FARFETCH didn't want to just be any platform. They wanted to be a platform for good. And for us, that was about enabling positive choices, positive actions amongst both the businesses and consumers that we serve and enable. So that's what I've been doing since I joined FARFETCH. Part of that mission, that Positively FARFETCH mission, is specifically around circularity. So we have 4 key pillars. One of them's on circularity, and the goal that we set ourselves there is to be more circular than linear by 2030. So to have 50% of our business in terms of units that we deal with being more circular than linear, which really means growing the number of units that we service, so that we either buy back from consumers or that we enable consumers to donate or repair or recycle or potentially in the future rent. So we need to grow those service models, but also grow the proportion of the products that we're selling. We already sell millions of products globally. The proportion of those which are more circular, so they are upcycled products or pre-owned products.
Okay, so you've got a task on your hands, Tom.
There's a big goal to go after. We're public about how we're doing, and we've got a long way to go. So we report publicly every year, and
fantastic.
The new report's about to come out, but last time I reported it was at about 2%. So we've got to get to 50. So it's still a long way to go. Okay, great. And just to briefly, you've got some experience with big brands outside of the platform world as well. I'm just interested to hear a couple of those, because I know that the audience might be interested. Yeah, so I mainly spent my career working in kind of consumer goods, retail and consumer goods. So as a consultant, I worked for some of the big retailers in the UK, and then I went in-house to a company called Innocent Drinks for a while, now owned by Coke, and then joined Kimberly-Clark, so the brand owners of things like Kleenex and Huggies and Andrex. So yeah, kind of mainly spent my time in that consumer goods industry.
Great. Okay, so focusing now on our topic for today, I mean, really to sort of recap about where we are. I mean, most people would possibly associate marketplace platforms with consumption, linear consumption, and this linear model, as Law has explained in the lovely intro to this panel on the website. Since the Industrial Revolution, this take, make, use, dispose model has been the dominating force in our economy. But what can platforms do to change that? And this is what we want to get into today. It's really interesting that we've got two panelists here with a focus on clothing, because obviously, this, it's particularly interesting to me. And I think a lot of our audience as well be interested to hear what you guys are doing, because I think quite often what happens in the fashion industry can lead the way. Now, really, I suppose, just to share your thoughts initially before we get into the nitty-gritty about the circular economy. Lucy, I just wanted to turn to you in terms of eBay and the circular economy. Now, was this something that you dove into straight away in your job? The word circularity, I think it's used and overused as well. How much does it dominate your day-to-day job?
Yeah, I mean, it's when I got to the eBay, got into my role, like, this has been going, like, the second-hand market is kind of like, it's nearly, a big part of eBay, and has been there for a long time. From the second-hand typewriter, I think everyone always quotes how it started off. So that whole kind of selling what was in your home, or what's in your wardrobe, has been around for a long time for eBay. That part of our business is massively growing, and from anything, as I say, we talk about fashion. Obviously, I head up the pre-loved fashion side of things, but anything from refurb tech to home and garden, even kind of things like used bikes, everything in that kind of area is massively growing over new, which is really encouraging, especially with the changing in kind of mindset of getting consumers to shop a bit differently. I think the bit for me is, how do we there is a lot of work with businesses, I think, is the big opportunity. And there's a really big education piece where what is people's do businesses really understand the waste streams within their business, and it's kind of when you start probing and say, what about this, what happens to this part of your business, what happens to those kind of the garments, then it's kind of, then you really realize what that opportunity is. And I think so that's kind of one side. I think the other thing for me is, like, how does it work from a kind of a circular term, as you said, that feedback loop into the first-hand market. So how do you really understand that second market to make decisions about the first-hand market, to make sure that you kind of continue in that circular way of working? A lot of it is down to education, from what we see from the brands and consumers. But yeah, it's massively growing, and that education is improving, but still a long way to go.
And Tom, by contrast, maybe your role at FARFETCH, maybe circularity was something that you sort of moved into, and in a way, is that something that was surprising for you, coming to work at a platform like that? Because not necessarily the case that these two would be seen to sit together comfortably.
Yeah, it felt relatively comfortable. I mean, FARFETCH were already selling pre-owned by the time I got there, so they been selling pre-owned since 2010. So there's kind of inherently an opportunity there, just business opportunity in that space, and you could arguably call that part of the circular economy. I think broadly, like when I came in, if we're a platform for the luxury industry, we're enabling a whole industry in different ways, and if we want to make that a better industry, which is the idea around sustainable business, then one of the key challenges on the environmental side in fashion is the fact that production is going up and clothing utilization is going down. So the need for circularity, because it's an unsustainable trend in the industry, because effectively the industry is using increasing amounts of new resources to sell increasing amounts of new products, which are used less and less. And the whole idea of circular economy is you're using less new resources, using existing resources more and more. So it was a key thing, which I think, if we're a true platform for good in the industry, that we needed to tackle. And there were some really in hindsight, I guess, really obvious opportunities for us. We had this growing pre-owned section of the website already, and then we have these 4 million active consumers who already, thanks to the likes of eBay championing this kind of thing for many years, are already starting to think about oh, well, it'd be great to be able to clear out my wardrobe, or it'd be great to be able to trade in this item. I mean, lots of industries, it's pretty common. You know, if you think about the car industry and now even the tech industry, it's quite common to be able to trade these things in. So launching the services which we have, you know, we launched FARFETCH Second Life, which is our resale service, and FARFETCH Refresh, which is our wardrobe clear out service. It was, you know, they were tough to do, and it's been it's been tough to grow them and get traction behind them for a whole load of different reasons. But it was it's an obvious way to align business priorities with the circular economy, and we had already started by having pre-owned on the platform. You know, it kind of felt quite natural in that way. But,
and would you agree, Lucy, that sort of platform business models align well with the principles of the circular economy? And going back to, you know, with our intro there, it's, you know, the idea initially, I suppose, with platforms, it was very much about linear. It was, you know, marketplaces were for selling. This was, you know, a kind of one-way traffic, but actually the model itself, it does seem to align. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. We're seeing lots of things where, like, things like relisting, like once you've, you know, how do you, like, we're looking at lots of different customer experiences at the moment where someone might, you know, how do you have something, you know what's in your wardrobe, like a digital wardrobe, and then you might get an alert to say, you know, this item that you bought maybe 5 years ago is now selling for this. Why don't you resell it? So it's kind of like, then it's putting it in that in circulation from a customer point of view. You're like, oh, I might need that money at the moment. So it's unlocking that. So you're benefiting that customer, getting something else in circulation, and then someone else might buy that versus buying something new. So absolutely, that platform allows that kind of that circulation of products, that relisting, that information transfer, and kind of all aspects of the circular economy, not just resale. There's massive opportunity in things like rental, which I think might come on to a second, and kind of recycling. So the whole of that end of life is really important to platforms.
It's a lovely image and an idea that the platform technology is almost like the motor, the you know, is powering that circular movement of things, isn't it? Because it's the technology behind it that's sort of powering up. And just before we get on to the next question, just to remind everyone that the questions from our audience are welcome as well. So do drop them into the chat as we go along. Just talking about successful circular platforms and their impact, what do you look to when you're doing your job, Tom?
I think it's
Lucy. Is it
like
Lucy? Do you look to...
No, I mean, like, I think it's basically trying to understand what's going to work for you and your business model. Like, a kind of successful circular platform is not, you know, it's like saying what makes a successful business. There are loads of things which can make a successful business. It's more about saying, what are the things which we can do in the industry that we're in and in the model that we run, which will enable better behaviors in the customers that we serve. So, you know, for us, we, you know, talked about running a consumer offer of take back and wardrobe clear out, but because we built that for ourselves, we also service these 1,400 brands and retailers around the world. And so a natural extension to that, and something which we have acted on, is we purchased a business called Luxclusive a couple of years ago, and they are a B2B platform resale business. So we can now enable other businesses, so the boutiques which are on our platform, other retailers outside. So Luxclusive run the resale service for Selfridges. We can be a platform for resale for those businesses as well. And it worked with our business model because we already service brands and boutiques with the marketplace, but we also already service them with e-commerce solutions. You know, that's a big part of the FARFETCH business. We run the e-commerce for companies like Harrods and Ferragamo and about 40 other brands around the world, and have if it goes through with the Competition Markets Authority, we'll soon be running that for the kind of Richemont Group brands. So yeah, it was a really natural extension of our own business, and that's what will make something successful. There's loads of amazing startups in the kind of resale rental platform space, and they've all offer something really unique. And we work with a lot of them. You know, it's kind of they're great models. So I've learned a lot from working with those startups, but it's always inherently about how can we plug that into the model to deliver.
You've got an interesting audience, obviously, you know, with the luxury goods. You know, are there particular ways that you've been able to sort of encourage that audience to embrace circular practices? Lucy touched on, you know, using TV shows where people would maybe normally wear fast fashion. You know, maybe that wouldn't work as well for your audience because there's a lot tied up in the actual sort of maybe purchase price and the designer name. What particular strategies have FARFETCH used for that encouragement factor?
Yeah. So on the sale of secondhand goods, the approach we've taken is really highly curated items which you can't find anywhere else. So there's like there's a number of different drivers for why people buy into pre-owned. There are a lot of people buy into it because it's often lower costs. We actually haven't targeted that market because we've kept it really high end and elevated deliberately, because we know that that's what our customers come to us to shop for, and that's worked really well for us. The pre-owned customer is actually a higher spending customer than our average FARFETCH customer.
Really? Yeah.
And so that's in terms of sale of pre-owned. And then in terms of even the service to buy back, we deliberately made it a buy up front model because we know our customers want a really easy luxury experience. They don't want to have to list, wait for items to sell, negotiate on price. They just want a really simple service which reflects the investment that they've made in that quite high value piece. So we've deliberately structured the service and the model of resale that we're offering to meet our kind of customer needs.
And at least, sorry, Tom, just I was interested to know what Lucy took from that and what contrast, but also what similarities there were with eBay's strategies for, you know, encouragement.
Yeah, I mean, I think trying to think give some more examples. I do think like the experience is just really paramount, especially because it's like single items. They're like, if you like, eBay has the most and like so many like listings and an array of brands and sizing and different eras and everything else. The bit for us is like, how do you get that to a personalized experience of what that means for me or for you or whatever? So that's like a real challenge for us sometimes. Some people like to browse through it and have and like scroll and kind of that browsing experience. Some people have very specific needs of what they want to look for in the secondhand market. We need to make that really easy for customers to make sure they get what they want and in their kind of style they want. So I think there's kind of that element on it. Obviously, value is really important for the eBay customer. A lot of it, we kind of tend to find that it comes to, it's all about price and value, and then it's sustainability. That's how people shop secondhand. So what we're doing a lot more of is playing into that sustainability space. So like, how do we, you know, what are those kind of, we call them nudge behaviors around, you know, at what point of their journey that they get that nudge to shop differently, or to have education on why circularity is good, or why you would buy secondhand. So I think they're all really important to change behaviors and encourage people to shop differently.
Great. And I mean, I couldn't be on here and not mention the sharing economy. So I just wanted to focus briefly on resale versus peer-to-peer rental in both of your experiences, because obviously, you know, Tom, there you've mentioned some exciting new startups coming through in resale, and obviously the same in peer-to-peer. So just really to touch on that, Tom, based on your experiences, what are the advantages and challenges of peer-to-peer versus resale? Obviously, FARFETCH doesn't do any rental or peer-to-peer.
Yeah.
Does it seem like something that is on the other side?
Yeah, look, it's no, I think it's a great model for the people who are renting out, and for the people who are renting in those peer-to-peer models, they're getting the benefit of the kind of best price in the market, likely the best price in the market, just because they don't have, there's no other middleman in the kind of in the way, if you see what I mean. And it also allows customers in the kind of really high-end peer-to-peer rental markets, it allows customers to monetize the investment which they've made without having to relinquish ownership of the product. You know, they like it, they want to keep it, but they can monetize it. So there are kind of key benefits. Just for us, the challenges, I think, would just make it too hard to support it through our platform, and those challenges are partly in terms of the experience. So often with peer-to-peer, because the renters are not kind of professionals, you know, the kind of experience of the person who's renting isn't necessarily great, and then vice versa. You know, he's kind of dealing with the challenges of returns and damage, and that kind of it's harder, I guess, peer-to-peer, and that you accept that as a peer-to-peer customer or seller because you know you're getting the best price. But that's not, that kind of service level is not something which we would want to offer to customers, I think. And then secondly is just rental generally, when we've looked at it as a model, because we've looked quite hard at how and when we could do it, and the challenges are that like logistical challenges associated with it. So the fact that it is, you know, it's high intensity in terms of shipping and also cleaning, but also that it's actually quite a complex model to offer, because you can offer subscriptions, you can offer like pay-per use, you can offer different lengths of time of that pay-per use. See the kind of the models around what you do if something is damaged or is kept for too long, or you know, so there's just a multitude of different commercial choices which you have to make, which make it quite a complex thing. Like I love it. I'm always pleased to see the new startups in the space. I think it's a really exciting area for me. Rental and resale, like they actually are pretty close. You know, it's all just about length of time in which you're owning something.
Absolutely, just whether it's the same person or many people,
so it's
isn't
not
it?
I think I'm sure someone cleverer than me will work out a way of bringing them together.
Well, I have seen a few very new platforms coming through where the item is really key. The way that you access it, there are several options, and you know, I'm interested to see how that idea evolves. Maybe Lucy, the idea that you see something on eBay and you've got that option to rent it instead of buy it, or you can resell or rent it out. I don't know, is it something that's ever in discussion around the table at eBay, or is it just, as Tom say, sort of fraught with difficulties?
No, I think we would never say never, kind of thing. I think as I kind of spent more time in this space, I feel like all the different elements of the circular economy need to link. So I don't think we could ever look at just a resale. Like obviously we have expertise in that, but how does it all link together? So we're doing a lot of work with rental companies at the moment, where they do have end of life, where probably they don't want to rent it, a customer might not want to rent it, but actually they might want to buy it. Or what's that end of life of renting, and does that go into resale to then increase that longevity even further? I think, you know, we're doing some work with a recent acquisition of ours with the Vault in Australia. Like, is there a way that a brand has you can buy that item, or you can rent it, or you can resell it? Like, how does that all work as a whole experience for a fashion customer, and what does that look like? So I think there's lots of exciting bits in this space and how they all link together.
And that takes us back to the tech. It would need to be the platform that was powering that and enabling it, which is obviously key. So I mean, we've talked about challenges here, you know, when we're talking about implementing circular platforms. And how do you feel, Tom, that the challenges present themselves, and how do you address them at FARFETCH particularly? They don't sound as complicated as the peer-to-peer challenges.
No, look, I think in some ways they are. Like, there's it's hard, as Lucy mentioned, that the individual nature of items in pre-owned is hard, just because you have single SKU listings, single size, single SKU listings quite often. So that makes it challenging just from a volume perspective. think the kind of costs and margins involved are hard. You know, it's sadly harder and harder in lots of the categories, which is why we've, like, the solution for us has been to focus on the higher margin, easier categories initially, at least. So the resale model, which we run, the kind of buyback model, is we've focused just on handbags to date, because a single size, they maintain their value, you know. So it just made sense. It was also the biggest selling category we had in pre-owned, so it's like it made a lot of sense for us as a so again, I think a solution is like focus where you know you can win, because it's about getting traction and scale, not about launching a PR. Like, if you're a brand or a retailer, I would say don't do it for the kind of PR benefit of launching something in circularity, because, like, think really carefully about how it's going to be part of your business for long term. Why would you invest in it to make it grow? So we did a lot of that thinking. Another challenge is visibility. It's just hard. Like, when customers are coming to a retailer, you know, on our marketplace, it's a retail front end. Customers come into that, they come to shop, you know, they come to buy clothing basically, and that's what they're used to. So offering them a service of like, well, do you want to sell that, actually jars a bit, you know. It's kind of it's quite hard thing. I mean, that's probably not a challenge at eBay, because people kind of know that it's two-sided in that way, but yeah, that has been a challenge. Like, how do you raise it? And again, the solution for us is just make it integrate, like make it obvious. So as I said, resale service focused on bags. If we're doing a bags edit for our, you know, shops, that's where we raise the profile of the resale service for bags, and it, you know, kind of works commercially for us as well.
Yeah, so sort of choose your moment, really, isn't it? Yeah. And Lucy, I just wanted to touch on, because I'm conscious of time, I wanted to touch on sort of policy and regulation, because obviously eBay is a big animal, and I just wondered how the policy and regulation can either support or actually, you know, restrict what you're doing in terms of circularity.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, we're part of I'm part of the advisory board for Textiles 2030, where we kind of work with the government on like how to, you know, what is legislation that will help in terms of really accelerating circularity. You know, it is fundamental in like really changing behaviours, especially kind of, there's obviously lots of work being done in EPR. What does that look like for the fashion industry? And it will change. It will just force brands to do something different. And at the moment, it's a bit of a nice to have. It's a pillar in the strategy. Yeah, I need to get to it at some point, kind of thing. But I'm still in this take, make, dispose mindset of how my business is made, that this fundamentally needs massive change in a business model to be circular. And as Tom said, like, everyone within that business needs to be behind it, and I think legislation will help that, and kind of like change things for the consumer. However, I would also say that I don't know, you know, that potentially could be a long way off, and you know I know Tom's got some great targets for 2030. You know, I think, like, how do brands like get going now, because, you know, it's the learning that each brand we work with, there's no one size fits all for circularity. Some brands will think one part of it is really important to them, others do different things. And how do those businesses learn now, get that data, understand what economics work? You know, there's so much innovation in this space at the moment, it's unbelievable. Like, I can't, like, even for the last 6 months, I feel like I'm trying to keep up with all this amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And in one sense, I'm really excited about all the different technology that's coming through, like generative AI and things like that will help you know, people adopt the circular economy and accelerate it. However, we need everyone and that mindset in there to deliver change. But yeah, so it's kind of 100% legislation, but I think in the meantime, till that goes through, what can businesses do to really accelerate this?
There are two bits of legislation coming through which I think I'm really positive about. One is it's like a EU, they're both EU level. Like, one is a directive for like minimum levels of recycled content within products, and a declaration of what recycled content is in products, so it has to be transparent to consumers, and they have to meet a minimum level. Like if that comes through, again, like from in terms of the levels of upcycling, recycling required within the industry, that could give it a huge boost. And a lot of companies are already doing that, but it will just raise the water level amongst all of them. And then the second is for the digital product passport legislation, which, you know, is an enabling technology. You know, it's just it's a way for consumers to access a digital version of a product. But it just, if that happens across all products, and if there is a good guidance around making sure that the underlying rules and technologies are all interoperable, then it massively enables people to access services in relation to the products they have. Services like pricing in the resale market, actually accessing resale services, accessing repair services, accessing even just like simple things like how you would clean your product effectively. Like it should, that piece of like enabling legislation should have a huge impact. It just depends on how it's if and when, and then how it's implemented. So
before I ask you for some closing remarks, I just wanted to jump to some of the questions from the audience, which we are up against it time-wise, but they are so interesting. I just wanted to quickly jump on those. Somebody's asked, do you measure the rebound effect? Are customers buying more in quantity because they buy cheaper or second hand? That's probably one for you, Lucy.
Yeah, we don't. I think it depends on the generation. And I think this is an ever evolving kind of market. I think what tends to happen sometimes for the Gen Z, they're quite used to this kind of fast fashion kind of like consumer model. And sometimes some of the platforms, things like Peacock and Vinted and those, they kind of get into that secondhand, like quite like increase, like, you know, a really frequent shopping experience. So so sometimes it is, you know, that people do end up buying more or the same as what they would do for fast fashion. It's not really where we want to get to. So there is that side of things. I think like the digital passports is really, I think it's really exciting, because I think we can do a lot more measuring on how many times an item gets resold, and you'll have that data to really understand that kind of rebound effect. So I think that data piece is really important, how we understand things going forward.
Thanks. And just squeezed one more in, if that's okay, Laura. Somebody was asking, this is one for you, Tom. How's your business? You did touch on this. I just thought this could be just fleshed out a bit. How is your business handling end of life for products on your platforms? What happens to it when it you know, can't be sold any longer?
Yeah, so I mean, it just goes to either the resale market, which we don't deal with, like so another reseller who's willing to deal with those kind of products at that level of quality, or it goes recyclers or to charity. So kind of, and they will end up often in like, again, they kind of either a mix of recycling streams and or resale streams at just a lower quality or lower price level.
Great. And I've just got time, I hope, Laura, to really kind of hopefully summarize how can obviously circular platforms help us transition. We've talked about the technology really just being the motor that powers these different ways of being circular, because as Lucy, you've talked about, it's not just about resell. Can we win this race against time is the big question. And really, I just wanted to turn to you, Lucy, and sort of ask if you had to sort of encapsulate the vision that you have for circularity powered by platforms like eBay. How would you sort of complete that sentence? The future of platforms is what, you know, it's as hard as the one Richard gave his panelists at the end of the previous session, but how would you finish that sentence?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of I think it's what you were saying before, like I see ourselves, or my vision is be that kind of heartbeat of the circular economy. How can we like obviously have that accessibility to all different types of circular business models, and then also that sharing of knowledge and being that kind of form of education to help people think differently, or businesses to think differently around circularity and what does the fashion industry come to. So I think that heartbeat and that powering is going to be really key over the next couple of years.
Fantastic. And Tom, same question to you.
Yeah, I think broadly, any platform, like fashion or not fashion, I could have the chat on Google. Google are a platform, and they, every platform is an enabler. That's what they do. They enable other people or actors to do certain things, and you've got to take a choice as a platform as whether you want to enable more positive choices or better choices which actually benefits people and the planet, or whether you don't care. And so as a platform, the kind of future of platforms is just about enabling better choices for people and the planet. They're the biggest issues that we face as a society, are social issues and environmental issues. They are the biggest things, and loads of businesses, the most exciting startups coming through, are deliberately orientating themselves around solving some of those problems. So if you're not thinking about it, you're missing out.
What an inspiring finish to this panel. Thank you so much, Tom and Lucy, for today's session. Laura, I'm going to hand back to you now. And look, we're only 2 or 3 minutes over, so I don't think I'll get told off.
This is perfect timing, Elle. Thank you so much. And thank you to you, to Tom and Lucy, for the super interesting discussion.